For the first time in Australia for a long time, this is the final word. I'm Adam Collins. Next to me, Bharat Sundaresan. Our show brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, our principal partner, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. I'm going to start at the end first, Baz. We've got an interview with Maurice Blackburn's Jason Brown about superannuation insurance at the end of the show. We thought, with this being the start of a massive series, we had a chance to showcase the great work that Maurice Blackburn do on behalf of working people. So that's at the end of the show. But boy, oh boy, do we have a bit to get through.
I know.
Let's just start with the core principles here. How are you? You've been unwell.
Yes.
You are staying in Perth with the West Coast Eagles.
Indeed.
You and Harley Reid together. You'll be selected number. They've got the number one pick, don't they?
They do. And
the draft's tonight.
They don't anymore because they've already picked me.
Picked you.
Yeah.
Right.
So I am the first pick of the draft in this year's AFL, and like many people have told me, after last season, maybe I could fit in. You never know. And if I am able to turn around their fortunes, Adam, to drag them out from 18th, where they finished the last couple of years, then maybe I am that magic potion.
Well, this is where they play. To set it up, we're in the back row of the top deck of Perth Stadium, the artist occasionally known as Optus Stadium, but Perth Stadium when there's an international match on or a World Cup on, and so it is this week too.
It was interesting the other day, 2 days back, I was there when they took down the Optus sign. Yeah. It felt like one of those kingdoms had fallen. They took down one letter at a time, O, and then P went down, and then T. No, it is the Perth Stadium. It's interesting, but if you look at it from the outside, and I don't know how they're going to do that on TV when they have the wide shots with the drone shots, because it'll still say Optus. But anyway, it won't say Optus inside.
No, so that's part of the week's discussion, but however, it's so much bigger than that. A lot of our conversation today will be setting up the Ashes. We have our first Ashes Daily tomorrow, and on from that we will move on to an excellent Shield round last week, which informs some of the selections here at Perth. PM's 11 coming up, a bit of news around that. India shitting the bed against South Africa, which was most amusing and most consequential in terms of the World Test Championship ladder. What on earth is going on with Sri Lanka and Pakistan and them wanting to leave the country and ending up staying owing to the intervention of the military? All fun and games there in the subcontinent. Better news around the World Test Championship. We've got Test cricket between Ireland and Bangladesh. We've got the Women's Big Bash League having started last week. We've got Andrew McDonald's son making runs with his dad in a club game on the weekend. It's that kind of show. It will be busy. It'll be Maurice Blackburn at the end. At the start, though, Baz, I wanted to tell you about, to reintroduce, I kind of did a soft launch for two of our final word partners for the Ashes on the Steve Finn episode the other day, which I recommend, by the way. Matt Roller, who is working with Steve Finn on the book, listened to it, and he was chuffed with how it came up. So,
beautiful.
That's a good endorsement. If the ghostwriter liked the interview, you probably will as well if you've not listened to it as yet. But yeah, very quickly, Zeus Sleep, who have come on with us for the Ashes, which is a terrific piece of technology, which you are going to be a direct beneficiary of, because what they do, they stop you snoring. This is a piece of technology. I know you've used a CPAP machine for a long time, so it's something that's close to your heart. But we will get you to trial it. You can have a go at using this. The Zeus it sits on the bottom of your chin.
All right.
There have been multiple clinical trials. This is 15 years in the making, and it's been going absolute great guns. I know a lot of people from Final Wordland have got in touch with me since I announced it on Instagram the other day, saying, I hope it works for you, because if it works for you, they'll be keen on buying it as well. So there's a 5% discount code that's in the show notes with TFW 2025. Pretty easy to remember that. That'll all be detailed as usual, and we'll tell you a lot more about Zeus as we get into the Ashes Dailies. But I thought you'd like that, something that will help people stop snoring, and I know that's been a big part of your life and mine as well.
Yeah, look, I've been the face of sleep apnea since I was 27. So, and the kind of people who I've encouraged to start using the CPAP machine, the names include Crash Craddock and Harsha Bogle. So I've been a pioneer in a way, because I was probably one of the younger people to be diagnosed with it years ago in India. So any product that helps you with avoiding that, because the one thing you do learn is, people make fun of snoring. People think it is a problem, but if anything, it's a symptom of something not right with your body. So if you can deal with it, it's like, nipping it in the bud.
Well, we'll get you one of these. So what it does is it stimulates the muscles in your tongue from beneath your chin. It brings your tongue forward. The air flows more straightforward, thus you don't snore in quite the same way. So this is all ahead of us. We're on a journey
Yeah.
with Zeus. We're starting it here. They're a great company based in the UK, as are Big Boots UK. Welcome to them. Big Boots. I haven't got them on right now because I'm wearing shorts and thus sneakers, but I'll be wearing my Big Boots boots every day of the series. They look brilliant. I wore them on the flight over yesterday from London, and they looked great. So yes, there's a discount code for them as well, sitting in the show notes. For that, all you need to do is click the link and you get 10% off. Big Boots UK, they're a great little company who are doing excellent things. Ryan, who's a patron of ours, been a supporter of Jeff and mine, he runs the business in the UK. They are sponsors of Northants County Cricket Club as well, so they're already in the game. So welcome to Zeus, welcome to Big Boots UK. You will hear so much more about those two companies as we work our way through the Ashes Dailies, which start tomorrow. And then we're into it, Baz. I mean, bloody hell, where to start on Ashes chat? Shall we start with perhaps what we've been observing at the back today, watching nets? I mean, you called it weeks and weeks ago that Jay Weatherald would play the first test. It feels increasingly likely there'll be no last-minute twist here. There'll be no last-minute switch them out, get Bo Webster in. Jay Weatherald will get to play Test cricket this week at Perth.
Look, as someone who has brought the worlds of wrestling and cricket together, Stumps and Bumps, listen to it every Tuesday night on SEN and on all your favorite podcast platforms. Some cross-promotion. And Eric Bischoff, I mean, can I just digress for a second? In this week's episode, I was shocked with how much he knew about Temba Bavuma.
Yeah, right.
Adam Collins. He had done his research on Temba Bavuma and on Joe Root, so it was quite something. If you want to listen to Joe Root and Scott Hall being spoken of in the same breath, listen to Stumps and Bumps.
How's he done his Temba research? Did you quiz him on?
Not at all. I mean, he must have. He obviously started following what's happening in the world of cricket. So we will talk about India South Africa later. So as soon as that game finished, because I saw a tweet from him saying, "What a great story, Temba Bavuma," and then I thought he was just being Stumps and Bumps or just promoting our show. But then when we recorded yesterday, he knew about how his mum named him Temba because it means hope and the village he comes from. And
he's really doing the research. He isn't just clipping the ticket, taking a check and letting you do the heavy lifting.
Not at all. And that's not how Eric Bischoff works. And the reason I talk about that is, as the great Paul Heyman used to say back in his ECW days, I don't make predictions. I just give you spoilers. So, August 7th is when I picked that top 6, which had Jake Weatherall opening and Cam Green at number 6. And just the fact that Usman Khawaja and Jake Weatherall batted together. I mean, they have been batting alongside each other the last couple of days. Today, they shared a net and they were facing Mitch Starc and Brendan Doggett with the new ball. Both of them steaming in on probably the spiciest pitch right here at the back, which also kind of tells you not just about Jake Weatherall making his debut, but that also means that Brendan Doggett will make his debut as the third seamer. And here's another, I mean, I hope this should be a spoiler. I am predicting Michael Hussey to be the one who gives Jake Weatherall his baggy green, because I know Chris Rogers has probably played a bigger role in Jake's career and life, but Mike Hussey has done that as well. They've interacted with each other over the years, and Mike Hussey is here, and I would be surprised if it isn't Dizzy Gillespie who is called upon to give Brendan Doggett his cap, if they are looking at someone outside the team, because Dizzy will be here doing radio, and he's often spoken about, Brendan that is, about Dizzy's role and Ryan Harris's role. So it looks pretty clear now, 2 days out, unless something dramatic happens between now and then, that Bo Webster will miss out, and it will be that top 6 with Doggett, Boland, Starc and Lyon the bowlers.
Baz with the scoop on the baggy green presentation right here on the final word. Love that. Mitch Starc's doing a press conference I see over to our left as well. It's a big press pack. All of our England colleagues are here. There's probably more media here than there was for the Border Gavaskar here this time last year. So it just reminds us what a huge event this is. Maybe we'll do a little bit of, well, you know what, we'll stay with Australia, then we'll come back to England. The Hazlewood omission, well, injury rather, which means he isn't playing this week, omitted from the squad along with Sean Abbott, who bowled so nicely in the Shield last week in the second dig, only to do his hammy. But it does mean that Doggett's a certainty to debut. We know that Hazlewood had to play the Shield like everybody else. They couldn't not stress test him. But yeah, the sadness for him is that since he started picking up these injuries 4 years ago, Hazlewood, which have a couple of times prevented him playing throughout a whole summer. We saw him miss a lot of Test cricket in the last 4 years at home especially. He's actually been at the peak of his powers, and it felt like he was the top dog in this Aussie attack. Not to discount how important Starc is, or indeed the role that Pat Cummins might play, and the videos you took of Cummins in the nets suggests that he'll be a really good show to play next week. But Hazlewood's been the through line. He's bowled so well the last few summers. Do not underestimate how big a deal it is that he's not playing this week.
Oh, I think in a weird way, like, I don't believe in jinxes or putting mockers on anyone, but all of us talked him up, understandably, because of just how he was bowling in that white ball series against India. It was probably the most informed I've seen any fast bowler being in my time watching cricket, and he was just getting the ball to talk. It felt like if he played all 5 tests, there was no way, whatever England did, they could stop Australia from winning the series, if not, by a significant margin. But to miss him is, in a weird way, bigger miss than Pat Cummins at this stage. But look, all we've been told is he's missing the first test, and 4 out of last 5 summers he's not made it out of Perth. So probably they've taken the precautionary way, and they've decided that let's rest him. We will need him deeper in the series, and maybe we might see him, say, come test 3 and beyond, because if he just comes back and bowls the way he was in that white ball series, it's going to be a tall order regardless of where those test matches will be played.
Yeah, I'm not for a moment saying they should pension off Hazlewood when there's a preamble to say he turns 35 on what will be the final day of this series, the 8th of January. So I think with Hazlewood, because he is a little bit younger than Stark, we think of him as being not very young man, but a young man in reference to Stark. But, he's getting up there as well. I wonder what their thinking will be, especially when it comes to that mighty mission in 27. So 2027 includes 5 test matches in India. At the back of a home summer, 5 tests in India, the Sesquicentenary test match. If they made the top 2, the World Test Championship final, and into another 5 test series against England, of course, in England. And before that, they'll have test cricket through the summer, as early as August against Bangladesh, if you want to call it a home summer. They'll be in South Africa for 3 test matches, 4 against New Zealand. It is a frantic run they go on from August this year, so it'll be really interesting to see how they manage Hazlewood. So, I got asked this on television the other day about how Australia will be thinking going in, what the psychology will be. I wonder whether this does, to some extent, weirdly increase the pressure on England, because it's gone from Cummins, who it was largely known he was going to miss. Well, it's been known for months that he was going to miss at least 1 test match. With both Cummins and Hazlewood missing, England simply have to win this week. If they don't win this week, they will be in dire straits, and they will be acutely aware of what happens when you drop the first test in Australia. They'll know they're off to Brisbane next week in a pink ball encounter, where Australia have been immaculate across the journey, only dropping 1 pink ball test in all of them they've played in the last decade. They've got plenty of resources to draw on for Brisbane too, with pink ball specialists like Michael Neser, who's played so much of it. So it just kind of reinforces, without Hazlewood, that pressure on those young men. I saw Harry Brook, Jacob Bethel walking in a moment ago with Shah Bashir. I'm not saying all of them will play, but there's a lot riding on this first week for England, even more than before the Hazlewood injury became apparent.
Yeah, and it's the first day, the first ball, the toss. All of that has played such a big role in Ashes cricket on Australian soil in the last 30 years. So, if they are unable to draw first blood here and this time around, which they haven't been able to in a long time, except, when was it? Even in 2010-11,
10-11 they drew at Brisbane.
That's right.
And they won at Adelaide. 86-87 they won at Brisbane, which was after playing a lot of cricket beforehand. And I'm just trying to think when before that. They lose famously at Brisbane in 54-55 under Hutton, when Australia get put in and make 600 plus. It's most unusual. I mean, you can go to the 78-79 series, but I've been pondering this actually, Baz. It's about 15-year increments to win the Ashes in Australia if you're an England team, since the war, that is. So I mentioned Hutton's team in 54-55, Illingworth's team in 1970-71. You talk about the voided Ashes of 21-22, that nomenclature that Broad used, and how much better is it this time than last time, by the way? Quick aside, last time 4 years ago, it was horrible covering that series. It's not about us, but it was a horrible series to be involved in. This does feel like there's a real joy and zest about what's going on. 78-79 without the frontline Australian players over at World Series Cricket. So you jump from 1970 through to 86, 87,
yeah.
and then from there you jump forward to
What,
24 years, I
Yeah.
guess. So it doesn't quite line up to when they won in 10, 11. But still, it's a once-in-a-generation event. So the question is, can this be their once-in-a-generation moment?
And I mentioned, drawing first blood or like landing the first blow, which is why I'm very curious. I'll be very curious to see if England win the toss in particular, because you know what Australia are going to do. They are going to bat first.
Yep.
And no team batting first has lost a test here. So that's something that I know England don't like to bat first, I know.
Yeah.
But one thing we've learned about this Perth surface, there will be a lot spoken about the green nature of it. And just speaking to the curator, probably the best built curator in the world, who I learned is a metalhead, of course. And Isaac was speaking about how, because of the sharp sun here, and this weekend is not going to be as hot as what we got last year during the India test, but they still have to leave enough moisture in there so that the pitch doesn't dry out too quickly and the cracks don't start developing, which means the fact that last year was an outlier where 17 wickets fell on day one, but the 4 previous tests, what the first team batting first made 400, which means if you can survive the first 2 sessions, then batting does get easier. And I wish, from an England perspective, that's the route they take. If they do win the toss, they bat first, because that will be their best chance. And also, you are testing out Australia's newish bowling attack as well in that fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is different for the reasons you've already stated. The one small tweak on that or twist on that would be that we know how this pitch behaved in the first 2 sessions, indeed the first day last year. It got progressively better to bat owing to the extra moisture that's left in the pitch here to safeguard against cracking, which has been a factor here since moving over to Perth Stadium 5 summers ago. We've had some pitches that have really cracked up, most notably the New Zealand Test match here when it was so hot here would have been late 2019. But yeah, we're both wearing overshirt. It's not piercingly hot in Perth today. It's different to the normal conditions that we've had when we've arrived in Perth in previous years. So, I wonder whether either side. I don't know. I wouldn't rule out Australia bowling either. The one thing about bowling though is that they do subject Brendan Doggett. Not that it's a huge problem, by the way. Doggett, who we'll come to in a moment, has got an outstanding record, but having runs on the board to bowl 2 would be a better setup for a bloke on debut with 60-odd thousand people here. It's not any other test match. It's the first test of the most anticipated Ashes series in 20 years after all.
Yeah, and look, either way you look at it, there will be a debutant opener or a debutant new ball bowler.
Yeah,
so,
true.
But I think Australia will stick to batting first with Steve Smith at the helm as well, because that has worked for them in the past over here. And just speaking to a couple of the Australian players as well, 2 days back, one of them said, "Hey, it looks like we could start the test match today." That generally is also a sign that as the pitch is being unveiled,
I was going to say we've got a sort of an unboxing here of sorts. The Hessian's been on for the last half an hour. There was a little bit of rain, not much, just a few drops, which actually was the reason why we moved up here to record instead of doing it on the field of play. But yeah, as the Hessian comes back, it's exactly as it was on that. I saw the West Australian published a phone pic. I think it was Nick Holt's phone pic.
Yeah,
that's how it looked anyway to me, which somehow made it on the front page yesterday rather than a proper photograph. But yeah, it looks exactly the same as it did then. It's still clearly green. I haven't mowed it back yet. And the reports from out in the middle yesterday were that it's hard as a rock.
It is, yeah, and it will stay hard. And if when you hear players saying that the test matches, you could start the test match today, 4 days out from a test match, that often also, especially from what we've seen happen in Perth, can often mean that the pitch will just get easier and easier to bat on, and also that it will crack. But we've had so many test matches on Australian soil here, especially here and in Brisbane, where it's a very different thing when there's one thing when the pitch breaks up and the other when we are waiting for the cracks to come into play. I mean, the famous example being that Rishabh Pant test match at the Gabba, where everybody thought India's not going to chase the total, because they had a lot of holes in their team, but also mainly because of those cracks. But the cracks never came to the party, did they? No,
that's right. And we saw Mark Wood, you saw Mark Wood bowling yesterday before I arrived and bowling rockets. He won't mind hearing that the pitch is hard as the proverbial cat's head. He'll want the pitch to have real life in it. We know from the data that this is the bounciest pitch in Australia at the moment. It's an example of drop-in technology used in a way that's been able to retain the characteristics that you want in this part of the country, right? Like you want to come to Perth and hear about a hauled and bossed pitch, Tony Gregg style. And if Mark Wood can keep that body in check for as much of the series as possible, and if they can unfurl him this week, that would be quite something. Is your instinct that they'll go with the 4 quicks plus Stokes and leave Shah Bashir out?
I think so. I know Ben Stokes likes to play a spinner, but especially if you are playing Wood and Archer, it would be a huge risk to then play just one more fast bowler and Ben Stokes. Just because I'm not saying that they'll go into any test match with that cynical thought that what if one of them breaks down, but just the history suggests that could happen. So it would be a huge risk in my opinion. And Ben Stokes as well. I mean, he bowled a lot in Lilac Hill, bowled a lot here in the nets yesterday, and I'm sure he'll do that today as well. So I would be surprised if Mark Wood bowls today. So all I was wondering when I was watching him bowl the 8 overs yesterday is this him preparing for the test match, or is it just him going through the workloads that he thinks he needs and the team management thinks he needs to get ready for, if not this test, for the next test or for the series? Because he's on record bowled just 16 overs. 8 overs in the warm-up game and 8 overs yesterday.
He bowled fewer overs than Pat in the nets yesterday, right? There was some
yeah.
Cummins has got...
Cummins bowled for an hour.
Yeah. Which
and
bowled again by reports quite quickly. So
absolutely,
I mean, obviously not available this week, but good signs for him. If Wood can get on and Wood can play a role, and if they really back Wood and Archer, and the unlucky man in all of this could be Atkinson, who doesn't deserve to lose his spot. But a world where Tongue and if they try and go all out, I said this somewhere else during the week, if they want to go all out with the 4 quickest bowlers they've got, not to question Atkinson's pace, by the way, but he's a different kind of bowler. He's not, if you're looking at out and out, try and rough them up, you'd be cast to have more of a handy in that with the way he tends to go about it. And then Josh Tongue, who finished the season magnificently and took a lot of wickets against India. And I meant to mention this earlier, and as a mop, boy, oh boy, he did a good job finishing off the lower order against India. And for Australia this week, Nathan Lyon is going to be batting number 9, which, that's, you don't want to say it's nosebleed stuff for him because, of course, he's batted higher up the order as night watchman many times. But with Brendan Doggett, a first-class average of 8 with the bat, and Scott Boland to slot in between the pair of them, it's not nothing that Australia's tail is far weaker in the absence of Cummins, and not so much Hazlewood, but Cummins especially.
It is. And I think the lower order runs will have a big role to play, I think, in this series. And 7 onwards. I mean, I think Alex Carey versus Jamie Smith will have a huge bearing, in my opinion, on how the series goes as well. Not just the runs they make, but the way they bat with the tail. And just looking at the fact that if Atkinson plays, then you have Atkinson at 8 and Cars at 9. And that's a pretty deep batting lineup. And Wood, if not for Wood's cameo, the Ashes doesn't turn around, right? Yeah, everybody speaks about the pace at which he bowled, but at 7 for 132, the game was almost dead and buried. And then it was Wood's cameo that turned everything around.
And the quicker it is and the shorter it is, the better for Wood historically as well. He made that rapid half-century in South Africa. I think it was a 50 a number of years ago as well, where he was hooking away. And that was what he did at Leeds too, wasn't it? It was the short ball that he took on that infamous Saturday afternoon. So that's England. They played their Lilac Hill tour match. It barely requires comment other than to say that Bethel, he got 70 odd in the second dig, but he needed to overtake Ollie Pope, who got a ton and a 90. So Pope will slot in at 3, unless they want to do something funky and play Will Jacks. I don't see it happening this week. I don't see them doing. And the reason for playing Jacks would be the ability to have a slow bowler in the group. But I just don't see a world where they would mess with things if Pope made runs at Lilac Hill, which he did.
He did, and just on Ollie Pope, I bumped into him at the Adelaide airport last summer. I think he was with the Adelaide Strikers, and we were just going through security, and he said, "Hey, so will I be seeing you behind the nets next summer?" I said, "Yeah,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, if you'll be there as well, right?" I said, and then I felt a little bad because then I had to wait for him on the other side of security, and I said, "Of course you'll be there." Yeah, and then he got it, but just having seen him from behind the nets and even the way he was batting in that game the other day, it just feels like a different Ollie Pope in terms of these conditions. And I have a bit more hope from him making runs here, because last time around, I remember watching him at the Gabba before the first test and going like, how's this kid going to make runs in these conditions, and he did not.
Well, he had a
So,
shocker. He made 70-odd runs for the series and bowled behind his legs at Hobart, which was one of the sort of
yes.
enduring images of that complete debacle that finished the series. And by the way, if you want to read more about that, Vatusha Hantaraja, our dear friend, wrote a great piece on Cricinfo about 21-22 on the Cricket Monthly, which I can recommend, which gives a bit of an insight as to how cooked they were then, and hopefully for their sake how different it will be now. Baz, before we go to our first break, we're just going to jet through the Shield from last week. It was the most consequential round. I felt sorry for poor old Bo Webster and all of that taking that fifer, but we'll come back to that in a sec, because it felt like Webster a month ago was the incumbent, and now with the way the cookies crumbled, he's very much not. But we'll start over with WA. What a victory over Queensland at the WACA ground across the river here. Queensland got 390, a Renshaw ton. Green got those overs in and looked good. Then WA declared behind at 322 for 7, Green 94, which just confirmed that he's good to go and hot to trot. Bancroft 76. Nisa took a couple of wickets but bowled a lot of overs, which is a good thing, getting his loads up ahead of the first test if by chance someone stood on a ball tomorrow. Queensland 203, Renshaw 51 more. Rockacholi fifer at left 272 for the Whackers to win. And when Inglis falls at 223 for 7, they look cooked. With Bartlett flying with the ball, Nisa as well in combination with Sweps and all of that experience. And then they get over the line, they win 9 wickets down, and Corey Rockacholi is the hero. It's the first win of the season for WA, and Rockacholi, who, if Nathan Lyon were to go down, he would be, I'm not saying he would overtake Kuhnemann or Murphy quite yet, but he's right there and thereabouts, having had such a prolific start to his domestic career over the last 5 years.
I think he will overtake Nathan Lyon, or overtake the other two if Nathan Lyon goes on, especially, God forbid it happens during this series, because I think he is the best suited off-spinner for Australian conditions right now. It would be a different story if you're talking about what happens, say, in India in 2 years' time. I think Kuhnemann is ahead of everybody else. I think Corey Rockacholi has overtaken Todd Murphy for sure. And I think he's just one of those characters, right, Adam? I just think he's going to win over Australia, just like I think Jake Weatherall is going to win over Australia with his story. And I'm really looking forward for the rest of the world to see the one that I shot with him and his wife for Channel 7. I think they will air it. With Weatherall and his wife. That'll be really cool. But Rockacholi is not too far behind.
No, and I've exchanged messages with him about coming on the final word. I saw an interview he did during the winter about his obsession with off-spin. I'm like, you are a man I want to have in my life. Adam Voges, speaking of WA, he's leaving the. They're not called the Scorchers anymore. No, that's the Big Bash team. The Warriors, leaving the Warriors at the end of the year. He's staying with the Scorchers. Bredick had the story that he's going to go and do some franchise stuff and stay with the Scorchers, but expand his horizons on the international circuit, having done such a terrific job with WA, winning all of those domestic trophies in 50-over cricket and, of course, 3 Sheffield Shields as coach. But you would think he's the man most likely to take over from Andrew McDonald one day if it's done on the basis of domestic performances. So good on him, because Adam Voges is one of the great guys in cricket.
Oh, he certainly is. And you speak to so many Western Australian cricketers who come through the ranks in the last few years, and the impact he's had on them, or even the Scorchers players as well. So with him out of the question, not out of the question, but I wonder who the focus will shift on. Maybe Ryan Harris from South Australia.
Maybe. And the other man who, by the way, it could be a shout to coach Australia one day is Chris Rogers.
Yeah,
his Victorian team are absolutely flying. Every other team in the comp's won 1 game. The Vics have won 4 from 4, thrashing New South Wales at the SCG inside 3 days. And the New South Wales team that was virtually test quality with all the bowlers and so on. Vics 382, Handscomb 104. I saw Adam White interviewed him the other day. Handscomb's test dream remains alive, and so it should. Yeah. It's deservedly alive the way that he's played, both for Victoria and for Leicestershire over the last couple of years. They'd enrolled New South Wales for 128, half century for Smith, but Sam Elliott, fifer. He's taken a lot of fifers for Victoria in the last couple of years. Vics 171 for 9, declared to set the game up. Harris 58. Don't know why he's batting at number 3, but there you go. Sean Abbott took 4 for, but sadly for him, his hamstring denied him a spot in the squad this week. He would have been close had Hazlewood gone down and Abbott remained fit on the back of how he bowled. Everyone was raving about how well he bowled in that 4 for. New South Wales were chasing a massive 426, resold for 125. Abbott and Hazlewood didn't bat because they were injured. However, after Smith's half century, there wasn't much after that. The usual suspects taking wickets. Boland getting Patterson early on, the Fergberger getting a couple. So Victoria, they are 32 points. Queensland second with 18. And yeah, Chris Rogers having taken over a list that needed some regeneration a couple of years ago, rejuvenation as well. He's got them in a great spot this stage of the year. They should, with maybe one more win, 2 would probably secure it, get in another Shield final.
I actually met Chris Rogers for dinner. Actually, he asked me to come over. We generally have a coffee date whenever Victoria play in South Australia, but this time it turned into dinner, and it was a night that Ollie Peake had led them to victory in a tight run chase where he just did it very nonchalantly. And I ended up in a pub where the entire Victorian team was there, and there's something about this Victorian team. You're right. I mean, they are young, and speaking of guys who would take over Australia or win over Australia, Fergus O'Neill is right on top of that list. And even though the most exciting conversation of that night for Chris Rogers was me about to launch Stumps and Bumps, a big wrestling fan, Chris Rogers, as you know, Colo. But there's just something about that Victorian team where there are a lot of these guys coming through, and even some like Mitch Perry, who started strong and had a couple of seasons where they kind of don't faded away, but they didn't really have the same kind of returns. But to see them come through and perform and take the load when Scott Boland and the likes are away. No, there's a lot of things to like about this Victorian team, and Chris Rogers is doing a tremendous job.
We're due a break, but I rattled through the last Shield game, which is where South Australia, another beaut of a win here over Tasmania at Bellerive. So 3 really strong wins over the week that was in the Sheffield Shield. Tasmania 209, Doggett Pfeiffer, which we referred to last week. Webster missed out with the bat. South Australia 177, Carey 59, Head missed out. Webster 5 for 50. It was the Bow and Bird show there. Jackson Bird, the ever reliable. Tassie 184, Weatherall 30. For the second time in the match, he got a start before chopping on Liam Scott. But still, 2 starts isn't for nothing when he's preparing to play his first Test match. And South Australia was set 217. They got it 7 down from 88 for 5 when the King Carey was bowled by Webster. Picked up 3 more, 8 for the match. But Liam Scott down the list with 53. Ben Menenti, 49 not out. Batting with Nathan McAndrew, 14 not out as well. So they're on the board, the defending champs.
Italy's own Ben Menenti. He missed the first couple of games. I think he had a foot issue. I think I met him during one of the One Day Cup games. He was really pumped about being in India for the World Cup, but he was excited about coming back into Shield cricket. I mean, he played such a big role, and that image of him walking off with some 100 people hanging off him will be etched in South Australian memories forever. And those two, Ben Menenti and Nathan McAndrew. I know Liam Scott, I've always been a fan of from the first time I saw him about 5-6 years ago, and I think at 24 he is only going to get better, and we're going to be talking of him at the higher levels maybe in a couple of years' time, if not earlier. But Nathan McAndrew and Ben Menenti, whether they play for Australia or not, they're just those hardened Shield cricketers, aren't they, Adam? The cult heroes of first-class cricket, who probably would have been bigger names back in the day when there wasn't so much white ball cricket.
We're due a break, Baz. We'll take that now and we'll come back with heaps more. We'll start in Australia and then we'll spread our wings. This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. It is, I might not have mentioned this off the top, it's Season 19, Episode 8, recording on the 19th of November, just 2 days before the Ashes begins. And I can tell you, Baz, I've got some very good news. Our friends at Stomping Ground, who we've announced as one of our partners this year, so they've got their outstanding brew house in Collingwood, which Jeff and I have been to before, many of our Final Word friends as well. We've got the Final Word beer signed off. The Final Word beer.
Wow.
You've seen something, by the way. What are you pointing at?
I'm just looking at what looks like Scott Boland and Brendan Doggett.
Oh, yeah. In their whites.
This is a sign.
Considering
together. This would mean that it will be the first time 2 Indigenous men are playing Test cricket.
Is that
for Australia?
Do I spy there an Indigenous flag in Doggett's hand? Yeah, I think that's the Aboriginal flag. We'll see in a moment, but I mean, this is. Yeah, we didn't really talk enough about Doggett in the first segment. Maybe we'll just do that now before going back to Stomping Ground. Yeah. Brendan Doggett, who looks so serene making his way to the crease. There's so much chat about him having to do it the hard way, having to have, in addition to playing state cricket and club cricket, work as a carpenter, to have made that Test squad as early as 2018 when we were there in the UAE. And now
this is live reporting, by the way.
7 years later, there we go. The Indigenous flag is being. I mean, it's quite a moving image. The flag is around their shoulders, and they're having their photograph taken. I mean, that's special. To think that, as Scott Boland himself said a couple of days ago, how important this will be for young Indigenous kids, seeing not only Scott and of course Jason Gillespie before them from a men's test team perspective, but now having two young Indigenous men representing their country in an Ashes test match here at the Perth Stadium this week, that'll live long in the memory. And, you know, we've had 2 iterations of the Reconciliation Action Plan, which has been such a big part of that story with Australian Indigenous cricket in the last few years, and how much work they've done behind the scenes. And look, I'm not going to say that everything's perfect. I'm not going to say that.
No.
I would never declare that, but you know, symbols matter, and this is certainly that. Seeing this flag draped around their necks. I remember in 1994, Baz, when I was a 10-year-old, seeing Kathy Freeman win the 200 and the 400 in the Commonwealth Games at Victoria, Canada, and wrapping that flag around her neck, and how controversial that was at the time, unnecessarily so. I think that was a real turning point for, you know, what that flag represents, what Freeman did there in '94, and of course there was no doubt when she won Olympic gold 6 years later that she'd have both flags in her hand, the Australian flag and the Indigenous flag, and well, that's the flag we're seeing right now. So yeah, live reporting. It's pretty obvious Doggett's playing, and I'm moved by that. That's a real thing, and that, I hope that'll be the front page of every newspaper around the country tomorrow.
Has to be. It really has to be, and not to forget that both of them shared the new ball for the Australian Indigenous team 2018 in England. So to come from that to, you know, I mean, at that point, neither of them probably thought that they're going to one day play Test cricket, and to be doing that together, and you know, for Brendan Doggett to be making his Test debut, like you said, which looks more certain now than
he's on his own now. He's got the flag spread wide and his arms out with it. I mean, this is
Boland has just like moved away.
Disgraced. Yeah, Boland's giving him his moment, isn't he? Like, that's quite clear that Boland's like, over to you, kid. Well, he's not a kid, obviously, 31, but this is your turn. We celebrated what Scott Boland achieved in winning the Muller medal 4 years ago, the 6 for 9 that we'll never forget, and the debut that will echo through the generations of Australian cricket. Well, can't wait to watch Brendan Doggett, who has earned this opportunity.
He has.
There's nothing glamorous about the way he goes about it. Just hits the seam all day long. And I love that, and there's nothing wrong with his pace, by the way. He's clearly quick enough to make it count at this level. But last year, leading the Shield for wickets with Fergus O'Neill, his last 3 years have been brilliant, averaging fewer than 20 with the ball. He started this season so well to absolutely make sure he'd be next cab off the rank. And here he'll be this week.
He will be, and I've been very fortunate to see him up close in South Australia ever since he moved. And I remember his first spell for South Australia was impactful, and from that point on, there have been injuries on and off, but he played a huge role in the turnaround of South Australian cricket, firstly under Jason Gillespie, and then especially under Ryan Harris. And he's, I've been telling the English media this anyway, though you underrate him at your own peril, because he bowls fast outswingers, he's skiddy. He's, I wouldn't say, I mean, Ryan Harris was at God level when it comes to skills, but he's a Ryan Harris-like operator, which is why Ryan has taken him under his wing as well in South Australia. I think he'll play a role for sure. Just seeing him with Mitch Starc in that net earlier, he was beating Steve Smith, who's again batting at his peak. So lots to look forward to from Brendan Doggett. 10 wickets in the Shield final as well, mighty South Australia. So not to forget, and he's deserved it. He's come close a couple of times in the past. And isn't it ironic, Colo, last year this time, I was interviewing him about Nathan McSweeney, his housemate. And here we are 12 months on, it's the other housemate who's making his Test debut. And just to hear about how much of an elder brother role he played to young Nathan McSweeney, and how close those two were. I think Brendan was more emotional than McSweeney was when Nathan got the call. So it's a sweet moment, and I don't think there's anyone in the Australian cricket system who will have one bad word to say about him.
Yeah, and played a lot of cricket with Jake Weatherall, who he'll debut. We've nearly called him Jay Weatherall again. By the way, Jay Weatherall's been announced this week as the next High Commissioner to London, so I must get him on the pod when I'm back home. Quite a bit going on out here. I'm almost distracted by the England warming up. Phil Brown, our great mate, was on the pod earlier this year, was kicking the football with the England players a minute ago. They had Mr. Brightside on a bit before, a bit basic for my taste these days, but I get why they like it. So 2 days out from a test where there's a lot going on at the moment, and
there is.
Just nice to savour it. I mentioned Stomping Ground. I'll just quickly note that the final word, Hazy Pale, you can look at the badge. I'm not going to show it to the camera. We'll reveal this on social media. Don't that look good?
That looks very good.
Can't you wait to buy a case of that?
Can't wait.
We're going to be giving away cases of not only Final Word Hazy Pale, but also the whole range of Stomping Ground beers if you're a patron. You know
Wow.
what? I don't even know if I've completely landed on this, but you know what I'm going to say? I'm just going to decide it here. I think Jeff and I have got enough of an agreement on this that I can soft launch it. If you're a new patron, or if you are an existing patron and you edit your pledge, or if you up your pledge basically, you'll be in the draw. And then we will pull your name out of the hat randomly.
What are you
and
waiting
you'll get
for?
your number done on story time, and you'll win yourself a case of the Stomping Ground. And we're going to do that the whole way through the summer. What better time to join our patreon.com/thefinalword, link in the show notes, than the incentive to win a beer. And it's not just new patrons. Again, if you're already a patron, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them, and we adore you for it, your pledge, you're back in the hat as far as getting the chance to win the beer, and that'll be a lovely thing. And the fact that there's a Final Word Hazy Pale, which will be available, I believe, on the 1st of December or thereabouts. Justin from Stomping Ground's been working on that with his team. It's another nice link through to what we're doing on the podcast this summer. Baz, as I left it, I wanted to get this into segment 1, but I wasn't speedy enough. The PM's 11 squad has been named.
Yeah.
Peter Handscomb, we mentioned him earlier. Pete's going to be the captain of that, which is terrific. Another Pete, though, Pete Siddle.
He's back.
Pete Siddle's playing in the 2-day PM's 11. I did hear from Pete the other day. He saw our T-shirt, our Final Word merch that we released last week. That goes Cook, Pryor, Broad, and Siddle on the T-shirt from the birthday hat trick, which, couldn't you believe, it's 15 years ago.
Crazy.
The first day of that Ashes series in 2010. Of course, you can find that T-shirt and buy it. It looks brilliant. Get yourself one of them and wear it to the cricket. But Pete did reply to me and said, this looks great. He saw it on Instagram, so he'll have one of them on at some point, I hope, wearing the Final Word merch. But yeah, just wanted to note that the Siddler's back. And cannot wait to see him make a comeback to first-class cricket at some point as well, perhaps. This doesn't have first-class designation, does it? A 2-day game?
It's a ping ball test. It didn't last year.
No, 2-day games
became a
can't
one-day
have.
game.
Yeah,
No.
can't it? But it's not going to be a proper England team. Word on the street is they're going to send, the Lions. So
Oh, right.
a bit disappointed in that, really. The PM's 11. I know it's like a warm-up tour game these days, but my view is that should be treated with a degree of respect, given that game's been played since the 1960s. It's not just another tour game. It's a staple of the Australian cricketing fixture, whether you like it or not, having that there each year in Canberra. It's a thing. I kind of feel like Ben Stokes and his team should spend that weekend in Canberra. I don't know what else they'll be doing. Presumably, I can probably guess what they'll be doing instead. I suppose how they're feeling after Perth. They've got a dreadful record in Perth, so if they win here this week, they'll be cock-a-hoop and partying, I guess. But anyway, just wanted to note that about the PM's 11.
Yep.
I wish everyone was going to Canberra. That deserves to be an event in its own right.
You'd think so. And, it is officially a warm-up to a practice game for the ping ball test.
Yep.
That's why the last 2 years, the PM's 11 has been turned into a ping ball game. But, in India, I think most of the main Indian players did play in it last year. Not that it held them in two.
Well, no, but the fact is they went there and they played it. It was on their tour list and they went along. So
I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah,
a lot of
on
England players.
they haven't named a squad for it, but there's some chat that it's going to be a fairly junior. It'll be more part of the Lions program than it is the senior squad. Like, as in, it'll be interpreted that way between test matches.
All I can say is if then they go and lose that ping ball test, especially if they're 2-0 down, I think the English press will turn on them.
True enough. There's some other interesting names in that PM's 11 squad. We've got Benji Flores from ACT. I always like seeing an ACT name in there. It's part of the tradition of that game. Sam Constas will be playing in it. Made 100 in it last year. Ollie Peake, who we've watched closely, been in Australian squads, kind of peripheral to Australian squads as an apprentice cricketer. Now, of course, playing in the Shield. Cam Kellaway, who made gutsy runs last week against Sydney, combating the thunderbolts of Mitchell Starc. He's close. So Doug Warren, who they like a lot, down in Melbourne, who's been playing his club cricket with Melbourne University there too. So plenty of names on there, and we will keep an eye on that between test matches. Right, so after about 40 minutes, we will finally spread our wings. We will leave the shores of Australia, where we are situated at the moment. Initially, at least, we'll go to Kolkata, where India have been rolled in a very rapid test match in a pitch that was turned up to 11, which, from time to time has suited India, but they lost 3-0 against New Zealand last year at a crucial stage of the World Test Championship cycle. And the gutsy South African team, but they only had, they had 120-odd to play with, 124 to play with in the fourth innings, and they've knocked them over. They've bowled them out for just 89, and 93, my apologies, and they've won by 30 runs to go 1-0 up in the series. Neil Manthorpe our great mate and colleague, has described it as South Africa's third best win since readmission after Sydney 94 and Melbourne 2008. That gives some sense of how he sees it. I'm sure the World Test Championship final sits alone, but in terms of bilateral cricket. And Temba Bavuma, that half-century batting forever in the third innings of the match, in relative terms of a quick game, which laid the foundation. And Simon Harmer finishing with 8 wickets for the match, 8 for 51. Best figures ever for a spinner for South Africa in India. What a presence he's been since returning to Test ranks. And as I mentioned before, India, having lost 3-0 around this time of year last year to New Zealand, 1-0 down to South Africa. Got to win your home Test matches in the World Test Championship, or you find yourself dropping down the table.
The fact that Gautam Gambhir then came out in the press conference and said there was nothing wrong with the pitch, you just have to bat properly, or I'm paraphrasing him, but it almost sounds like a household where tough love is just part of how it is.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to find your way. I'm sorry, these are the rules. Conditions will be tough. You just have to find a way of succeeding through them or through these challenges. So that seems to be the thing with Gautam Gambhir as coach in Indian conditions. I mean, we've seen he's not the first coach to have gone the turning track route. Anil Kumble did that famously in Pune, and that backfired. But don't
you think it's backfiring more now than it used to? You take Ashwin out of the equation, and a team that heavy on all-rounders, Washington Sundar batting at 3. Not to diminish, I think we advocated for Sundar to bat 3 in the recently completed series in England. He looks so organised. But still, it isn't, Sundar barely got a trundle in the second innings. I don't think he bowled at all. So, getting the team balance right when you're only playing a test over 3 days is another element to this. I know Jadeja took wickets in the second innings. No reflection on India's spinners. They've ultimately bowled out South Africa for 159 and 153 and lost the game.
And it just, techniques were exposed as they have been with Indian batters against spin, but techniques will be exposed on those pitches. Whoever you were. It's not that, I think Temba Bavuma's half-century will go down as probably one of the finest South African has played in the subcontinent. It was where he showed you can play late, how to defend, and it was just outstanding to watch if you are one of those who likes the torture of test match batting on a pitch like that. That's what it was. It was torturous, but he found a way. But to expect these Indian players who come through the ranks not having to face these kind of pitches anymore in domestic cricket, to suddenly expect them to find their feet in Test cricket on ranked turners cannot be an easy task, and they are getting found out.
No, that's right. And look, it takes something. It takes a lot to get through that, because there is that whole ball's got your name on it thing, which plays into the psychology of batting in those conditions. We spoke to the Australian team when they won in indoor a couple of years ago, and they're like, well, to an extent, they just had to find a way to put to one side the risk of dismissal, which is it's different to the normal rubric. When you're batting, of course, you're thinking about being dismissed in. And you're right about the Ranji Trophy. You don't see scorecards like this in the Ranji Trophy. A 25 from Corbin Bosch, which again Neil Manthorpe wrote glowingly of, was as important as a 125 in a normal Test match. So they play their second Test this week, and I do wonder, Gambia under the pump. I saw that Gambia out hashtag. Not that hashtags matter much in 2025, but it's a sign of where the people are at. And, I don't imagine there'll be any scenario where he would actually lose his job owing to the very obvious way in which he was appointed and the connections back to the top. But still, the fact that it's even a talking point when only so recently they've enjoyed success in white ball cricket. I love the fact that Indian cricket fans are so angry about them not winning at home. It's a reminder of how much Test cricket matters in that country.
Oh, it does. And you're right. Statistically, this has been the worst start for an Indian coach probably ever, or in a long, long time. What India went through, 12 years where they lost 5 tests. Now they've lost 4 tests in the last 8 tests.
You're right. It was a crazy stat, wasn't it, about how infrequently they'd lost at home. The great outlier was Pune 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then England's win in 2012, and that was it, actually,
for
the longest
decade,
time.
Wasn't it? Between losing series, maybe even longer. So that's the India story. The second Test begins this week. I wouldn't ordinarily talk about a tri-series on the show in the weekly between Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Zimbabwe. We might brush over that. But during the week there was a suicide bombing in Islamabad, which is horrific, obviously. And you can understand with Sri Lanka's history in Pakistan why a number of their players wanted to go home. But the intervention of the Pakistani army chief, Syed Asim Munir. He got involved and provided them with assurances about their own security. So Sri Lanka will stay on in a tri-series that I believe that begins today. And Naqvi, who's, he's the Interior Minister. So he's got, some ministerial coverage over what's going on inside the country, running the PCB. It's obviously a situation at its core, which is a tragedy with the suicide bombing, but the diplomatic and cricket ramifications and that sorry history of what happened to Sri Lanka all those years ago, which can't be too far from the surface.
It can't, and for a couple of days there, it looked like most of the Sri Lankan players wanted to go back, but then clearly they've been convinced that they will stay safe. For me, the silver lining from this tri-series is just to see our friend Sikandar Raza get to captain Zimbabwe in his original motherland of Pakistan. I think that would mean a lot to him.
It's awesome.
And I saw a press conference from him overnight where you could see he was just his affable self, and you could see the joy, the personal pride that he was taking in getting that opportunity.
I can't tell you how close it came to Sikandar Raza hosting the final word daily in the Test match he played at Nottingham this year.
Oh, right.
He wanted to do it. He was keen to host the show, and it didn't quite come to fruition. But maybe next time, Sikandar, if you're listening, we'll get you to host the final word. Some better news away from Pakistan, the World Test Championship. This was a news break on Cricinfo this week. How's this? Roger Twose, what a man. The former New Zealand international, used to get a mention quite a lot on the greatest season that was when we spoke about various series that he was involved in, especially that World Cup in '99. Well, he wrote a report for the ICC Chief Executives Committee, which met last week, which advocated that the World Test Championship be expanded to 12 teams.
Yeah.
No tiers, no divisions even. Now, the division thing's a bit more complicated because promotion relegation has been knocked on the head allegedly reportedly by England, India, Australia, who never want to run the risk of getting demoted.
Yeah.
So one division of 12, but it means that the aforementioned Zimbabwe, Ireland and Afghanistan, after 4 cycles out of the World Test Championship, playing these bespoke test series from time to time, from 2027 reportedly, will end up in this expanded WTC. That's pretty cool. I mean, it'll be an absolute nightmare to administer. If they're going to keep playing 6 series across 2 years, it'll mean you don't play 5 teams each cycle, which will be as inelegant as it comes. It exacerbates an existing problem with the format. I probably would say you'd have them in 2 groups of 6, but the problem there is that Australia, England and India will insist on being in the same group every time, which compromises the draw. But anyway, that's a problem for another day. Let's celebrate the positive that there may well be, thanks to Roger Twose and his committee, a World Test Championship that's going to expand and not contract, which was our fear at the start of 2025.
I think it's like that very popular Undertaker meme that keeps popping up, right? Every time this talk of Test cricket dying or the way we knew it, it just rises back. Someone this time is Roger Twose, like he used to. At his peak he had a peak of 2-3 years, right? He would win them games, unwinnable games. He wasn't quite Michael Bevan, but at least I remember half a dozen times him doing that, and that's what he seems to have done. I mean, the logistics will be tricky. And in a way, I think whatever plays out, Colo, I think the India, Australia, England grouping will happen. I mean, they will play their 5 test matches against each other, regardless of what happens with the other 9. But it's a great sign, and you're talking about South Africa, them being World Test champions, them having now, since winning at Lords, beating the odds to beat Australia, they won against the odds in Rawalpindi under I think Markram was captain in that test, and now this famous win that Manas thinks is the 3rd best of all time, and if Manas says so, that is the bottom line.
There was a 13-team World Cup Super League for one cycle between the World Cups of 19 and 23 for the men. In this same report, there's chat of that returning after the next 50 over World Cup as well. So Roger Twose for ICC Chief Executive.
Yeah.
Let's start the campaign here and now. If this is what Roger Twose is advocating for, if this is what he's recommending to the top table of the ICC, we want Roger Twose running the global game. We want you.
You, Roger.
You. If you're listening or watching, let's get you on the podcast and talk some more. Speaking of Ireland and other teams that are playing Test cricket less often, they are playing Test cricket against Bangladesh right now. They lost the first Test by an innings and 47 runs. But as Nathan Johns said in his report, they weren't disgraced. They made 286 and 254. Paul Sterling and Andy McBride making half centuries. But Bangladesh with the bat were just too strong. 587 for 8 declared with who we got here. I can't read my own handwriting here. There are a couple of centuries, believe you me. I think one of them was Shanto. Sorry, I've written some poor notes on my screen. And a fifer for Matthew Humphries, an expensive one, but fifers don't come along very often for Irish test spinners. So Bangladesh win the first test. The next one begins today in Dhaka. Great thing that they're doing too. And Ireland, in other news, the first step towards the Abbotsford venue is away. They've got planning permission for the ground that Warren Dootram's wanted to build. This is this will eventually be the home of Irish cricket, and why it's so important, the reason they find it so difficult to host Test cricket and host other cricket that's not at a massive loss, they don't have their own ground. They always have to hire grounds.
Right.
The Abbotsford ground, that if they get it going, and planning approval step 1 last week, will be a massive thing for Cricket Island. So hopefully that's all in the right direction. Their new chief executive, Sarah Keane, will be navigating all of that, and a nod to Warren Dootram, who was the outgoing chief executive earlier this year, who's been working on that project for a very long time. One more good ICC thing on the way through this segment. They have got their development tournament happening starting this week in Thailand. That includes 8 nations, T20 cricket, who aren't full members. It's the Emerging Nations T20I Trophy. Thailand, who are hosting, the Netherlands, Papua New Guinea, the UAE, Scotland, Namibia, Tanzania and Uganda. Reminds me a little bit of Fair Break, albeit that was domestic rather than international teams playing, but which is sad, by the way, that Fair Break is no more right now. Didn't have a tournament this year, and Sean Martin, the boss, the creator and founder of that, no longer there. Kind of went into a bit of a heap after he left. Is a busy boy now, starting a new organisation called Lyrebird. We'll talk more about that when we're in Sydney. But yeah, I always like seeing these types of things from developing nations, emerging nations in the women's game here. Knowing that if they've got an expanded T20 World Cup in a couple of cycles on from now, with regional qualification, these are exactly the kind of comps you need to have to give themselves the confidence of going away and maybe knocking off a full member.
And there has to be incentive, right? If you are one of those nations, or if you aren't even on that list at the moment, for you to put in the right steps, whether it's in terms of grassroots or infrastructure or just development of talent and opportunities that you're giving in your respective countries. If there are tournaments like that in the future, then you're like, okay, if Tanzania can get through this time, maybe next time around it could be the Ivory Coast or or one of those other African
Well, like
nations.
I said last week, like Brazil, they've got credible pathways to global tournaments, which didn't exist. The women's game was a close shot with the top few nations. It doesn't feel that way anymore. So another step in the right direction. WBBL, we'll do a bigger recap next week. We're 13 games and 2 weekends in. It's one of those tournaments that happen so quickly, like the men's Big Bash these days, that it's a bit hard to stay on top of. But the Canes and the Gades are off to a flyer. The Thunder and the Heat, 3 losses to start their 2025 season. But when Jeff and I do the weekly next week, we'll get right into the weeds of that. And last but not least, before you go, the great story of Andrew McDonald and his son batting together in North Geelong cricket this week. You've been following that story with young Ollie, isn't it?
I
Andrew
have.
McDonald's son, and it's the joy as a parent to play with your son, and they both made half centuries, and Ronnie was 60-odd not out when they chased the 130-odd to win, so he won't get a chance to do that too often in a busy Ashes summer, but he's used his weekend off well.
It has. I mean, dramatically, it happened the same afternoon that Josh Hazlewood was officially ruled out from the first test. I'm guessing Andrew McDonald knew that before he walked out to bat with Ollie. But you're right. I mean, I've watched Ollie grow up one Christmas day at a time over the last 5 years. I remember him as a little bespectacled kid who would hit across the line, but every year he would be taller and hitting the ball straight down the ground. And I always kept his father abreast of the development he's made in front of my eyes. So I messaged Andrew immediately when I saw the scoreboard pop up, and I told him how proud I was of young Oliver. And classic Andrew McDonald, head coach. No wonder he's a coach of a very successful Australian team. His reply was, yeah, mate, but you're not taking it easy on him. I don't want him to get complacent. One partnership doesn't break a summer, so you have to stay on top of him. I'm going to tell him that before Christmas Day. So there you go. Ollie's, for now it's one partnership with his dad, but he's coming through the ranks really well.
Well played to the McDonald's. There'll be a link through to our guest in a moment. As we go off to the break and we say our goodbyes from Perth Stadium, NordVPN I neglected to mention them earlier. I shouldn't neglect to mention. Everyone will be still listening, so it's not a problem. Because, this is an episode that is going to be downloaded by so many people because of the Ashes. That's all good. That's the first thing when I got into my accommodation with Daniel last night, noting that you're staying in the West Coast Eagles townhouse, as we mentioned before.
Yes.
I'm doing social media posts for them. So Daniel and I are together, thanks to Phil Meng, the great Phil Meng, the man who started Nerd Pledge. I texted him from Doha saying that you and I had come a cropper with our accommodation plans as they previously were. He goes, don't worry, I'd already organised for Norcross to stay with him. Phil said, you can stay with me, I'll go stay with my mum. Like, you're an absolute legend, Mengy. And the first thing that Norcross did last night when we convened was get his VPN into order so that he is all set for the 8 weeks ahead. And if you're coming out to Australia, like so many people on my flight yesterday,
oh my God,
do not arrive in Australia without your NordVPN. NordVPN.com/TFW. It's like a cup of coffee. Maybe not a Perth cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I paid $5.80 for it. They go, I asked for a flat white this morning. She goes, oh yeah, so that one. I go, it's a fucking enormous cup of milk with a couple of shots of coffee. I go, no, just give me a normal coffee, please. When did we start turning a normal flat white into a small flat white? Australia has a lot to answer for when it comes to, anyway, a small flat white, as the nomenclature went, cost me $5.68 or something.
Wow.
So I'm not sure what the NordVPN comes to exactly right now, but about a cup of coffee, a cheaper cup of coffee. And that will mean you have access to upwards of like 150 countries now around the world. And for Daniel specifically, that'll mean he's a Strictly nut. He'll be able to watch the episodes of Strictly week after week. He's always brilliant talking about it on Twitter, the artist formerly known as, through these months of the year leading up to Christmas. So I can see a world where Daniel and I will tune in to watch some Strictly, and we will be able to do it on BBC because we will have our NordVPNs fired up every single day of the series. Make sure you've got yours. Money back guarantee if you don't like it, as if that's going to happen. Months for free within the package already, and it's cheap as chips. So it's the best in the world. They win heaps of awards. You've got one, I've got one. NordVPN.com/TFW for your discount, which of course is folded into our existing arrangement. Love to them. They've been with us for a long time. Baz, before I let you go, well, not before I let you go, I've just got to let you go because that's us done.
Oh, we're done.
We've done our hour.
There you go.
It's been lovely. I think we'll talk for a long time about that Boland Doggett.
That was
moment.
very sweet.
It's just one of those
Yeah.
corner of your eye moments. The privilege of being here and
Yeah.
covering this series, and England going through their paces now. I mentioned they've got
Look at the slip
dreadful
cordon.
record in Perth over the
Yeah,
years. Who got
it's
who's in the
Ollie
cordon?
Pope,
Ollie Pope
was
Is
that
that
third
Crawley
slip.
in there, I see.
Yeah. So it
the
was
usual suspects.
Rude Brook,
Yeah.
Crawley, and then Doggett.
So they'll be ready to roll if this pitch gives them some love, and let's hope it is a pitch that brings plenty of exciting cricket. Jeff and I will be with you tomorrow to preview the game formally on our first Ashes Daily episode, which is bloody exciting. If at the very last minute you want to get involved with the Ashes Daily, we've still got one spot going. Adam at finalwordcricket.com. Adam at finalwordcricket.com. You can place yourself right in the middle of those Ashes Dailies. Patreon.com/thefinalword to get in the running for the Stomping Ground beer. We're really well supported by our patrons and by our partners, and we adore all of them, as I adore you, Baz. Great to be back with you. Great to be covering the Ashes. On the other side of this, Maurice Blackburn's Jason Brown, who provides us, in addition to other things, an update on Will Basisto, another man who will be playing cricket with his son in a couple of years, who is coaching at the moment. He'll tell you all about superannuation insurance on behalf of our principal partner on the show, and then we'll catch up again tomorrow. Bye.